I want to make sure everybody realizes we're one of the few projects that's doing something like this, and it's really exciting to be able to have this conversation open between the team and the community, and we're going to lean into this. So this is something we're going to start doing every couple weeks, and it'll be standing invitation. We really want open questions and open communication from everybody. So any questions that come up, we're excited to have. So the first question that I've got, let me just scoot back to see who it came from, is from Speculation Hill, and he's specifically asking about Gas DAO. But what he's asking is how the tools that we're building can work with a community, and I think this goes back to our, the conversation we had about the people's data. What does this data mean for a community if we're collecting data? What could they be doing with it? How does that work in a longer term picture?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I have to admit that I'm not terribly familiar with Gas DAO, so most of my response here will be a bit more general. We at Bird are obviously very community centric, so we've definitely put quite a bit of thought into what the implications of all of this work that we're doing, what it means for the broader sort of community management ethos in crypto. And I think the best way to consider this is around the value that you create in building a personalized experience online. If we think back to Web 2, its adoption, right? Its central position in our lives really didn't emerge until those platforms started becoming a lot more personalized. So it's a bit of a general answer, but I think the greatest impact that we can have on how communities operate in blockchain is by bringing more people in and having the products and services and interfaces that they interact with be more customized to them, because that only serves to attract new eyeballs and only serves to strengthen the relationship between the people that are building these platforms and the people that are using them. The more that we can build things that are designed for specific users to address specific problems or opportunities, the closer that relationship becomes. So like I said, I don't know much about Gas DAO, and so I kind of have to sidestep that part of the question, but what we are building, I do think, is well aligned with the broader industry's goals in fostering a much closer relationship between operators and investors, certainly much closer than exists in traditional capital markets today.
So we talk about all these partnerships and these projects and platforms will be using the tools. Do you see a world where a community could kind of combine together and create a credit score or a community score where they can then go out and say, hey, advertise to us, or hey, look what our combined value is, or something to that effect? Is that might be what his question is leaning into?
I think there's definitely some overlap between that question and that idea and some of our future roadmap. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because I know there's been some questions around, product development. So this will kind of blend with those questions when we get to them later on. But we are obviously, very focused on decentralizing what is otherwise an overly centralized process. And in Web 2, you've got very small groups of developers and board members that are largely responsible for everything that happens around these machine learning models. We are actually in talks with a platform that for now will remain unnamed to enable us to actually decentralize the model building process itself. So to kind of go back to your original question of, can a whole bunch of people get together and build a product like a credit score that could be useful with the help of Bird's architecture? I do think that a future like that is in the cards. We will be looking at opportunities to combine platforms like Kaggle, which are essentially like machine learning competition platforms. A bunch of people get together, try to solve a problem, and the person who has the best solution ends up some kind of reward, usually a pretty substantial payout. We're investigating the opportunity to use decentralized technologies to invite community members with a background in machine learning to actually participate in the modeling process in a kind of competitive framework. So this stuff is all super early. These aspects of our roadmap are definitely further down the line, but we're in conversations now with other folks that can help us design that kind of ecosystem. Can a group of people get together and self-organize to create a credit score without the help of any other kind of architecture or organizing features like a company? A credit score might be a tall ask there. Maybe some other scoring products could, but Bird will be putting a lot of fuel on that fire by laying groundwork that helps people, collaborate and coordinate. It reduces the needs for a lot of the front end work that happens on the data prep, and lets people just collaborate on the modeling process itself. So it's a bit of a tangential response, but I do think it's similar enough that it's worth noting.
So while you mentioned the collaborating a little bit, Audacia here is asking, I'm interested in the algorithms and the ML results. Is there a way to get some feelings on that? Maybe share some of the non-essential GitHub repo. Would that be possible in later phase? Members of the Bird community design some algorithms and test ourselves with on-chain data. So I think that leads into what you were mentioning a little bit. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that, so the second question there, in later phase, members of the Bird community design some algorithms and test ourselves with on-chain data. That's our goal. The certain aspects of the community and the tools will need to mature alongside Bird to make that possible. I think it would be a little bit too big of a pivot for us to say that we're going to try to rebuild like a Kaggle type platform. But if there are other players out there, like the partner that we're in conversations with, that are building ecosystems like that naturally that we can either build on top of or white label or fork, that's a very real possibility, and it's a clear goal in our future. And I think it's a goal that we are very, very likely to be able to meet. The wisdom of the crowd's logic here is valuable. There's a reason that Kaggle is as successful as it is. Some of the biggest companies in the world, when they have challenging problems, they don't just rely on their engineers. So they crowdsource it. Why wouldn't that model also work here? I think the answer is that it would. Now, the first question around getting access to our private GitHub repos, I don't think that that's going to be in the cards in the near future. We are still learning a lot about the differences of competitive intelligence in this industry versus in other tech industries. And so for as long as we're still kind of getting a lay of the land and understanding what is proprietary and what isn't, we'll be erring on the side of caution. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody in our community that has a particular set of skills can't get involved. We're constantly getting requests from community members to, be able to help in any aspect of the data pipeline, the machine learning pipeline, and we welcome those requests. We've got a couple of people that aren't core team members that are actually starting to get in there and look at the data. So I don't know if I'm pronouncing your handle right here, Audacia, but if that's you, reach out. Let's talk some more, and perhaps you can get involved without us, exposing a lot of that proprietary, code and analysis.
I think, that's where I came from too, is community. The welcoming arms that you've provided. I think people should know that it's here. If people can be helpful to Bird, maybe it's not a job, maybe it's not an official role, but it's an entire project, community and team working together. That's how I see it.
Yeah, Eric. I think technically speaking, every single person on the team except the founders came from the community.
Something everyone should definitely keep in the back of their minds. So we've got some questions here from Gem Hunter. I'm going to skip the first one because that's a little bit longer to get into, but ETA on the first lot of products going live. And I know we've talked about it, but where are we a little bit here?
So we still have a little bit of research to do, and we have the production deployment, process to kick off. So we haven't set an exact launch date yet because for as long as there's still outstanding research, that launch date is a little bit, up in the air. But right now we are providing, tentative guidance to our partners that the Launchpad score will be released in the first quarter. So we're looking at that's a maximum of about 7 weeks from now. So again, it's not set in stone yet, but that is what we're communicating to our partners that are looking to integrate the score, that those discussions will kick into gear in March with ideally a go live by the end of March.
You want to spend a 30-second overview of what that Launchpad score means or does?
Yeah, sure. So this is going to be redundant to a lot of people here, but we'll go for it anyway. The Launchpad score, at least in its first version, it's looking to predict one thing. How long will a given wallet hold a token investment in days? And the goal of that is to provide launchpads with intelligence that qualifies, the nature of certain investors. So when they connect to the platform, they'll reach out and they'll get our prediction that says how long this wallet is likely to hold the investment that they're in theory about to make. And the platform can decide to offer high quality investors perhaps a lower investment token price. It's possible they would offer some kind of bonus on top of their purchase amount to the best investors. We've got a lot of input that people want to adjust their tier membership criteria based off of this score. So ultimately, our stance has always been we will provide as much context and explanation as possible about what the score is and what it isn't, but the platform gets to decide exactly how they want to deploy it. And the reason for that is pretty simple. No one knows their business as well as the people that are running it. So far be it from us to say, okay, this is exactly how you should use this score. We actually welcome all kinds of creative uses of this score because that's the type of feedback that can drive, new innovations and new research for our team to develop subsequent versions of this product.
And so following the Launchpad product, we've been talking about the gaming product and being able to identify VIP users early. What's lead time on that? So how tied into the Launchpad product is that? How tied into, are we building something totally new or are we building something that transfers quickly?
So in any data science project, the majority of the effort goes into preparing the data, and the minority of the effort goes into actually building the model or conducting the analysis. For that reason, we can safely say that most products following this Launchpad score will be deployed far more quickly because right now we're strictly using on-chain data. So it means that, for the most part, a lot of the engineering on the data side has actually been done already because we did it for the Launchpad score. So it's not quite fair to say that there's no additional data engineering required for new scores that follow, but it's also not going back to square one. Now, it's like specific launch dates for products pertaining to gaming. We're not really quite ready to talk about yet because I think there's even still some uncertainty about the order in which we'll build these products. There's 2 or 3 that have been identified by our partners as being potentially useful. So there'll be a whole round of discussions both internally and with our partners to prioritize that development process. And I would guess that we'll be beginning those conversations right around the end of Q1, since that's the time we'll be wrapping up our Launchpad score.